Hello and welcome to the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we discuss what we think is the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. This is a podcast where we ask our guests the one burning question about the future of digital transformation. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the 1Q podcast, where we discuss the next wave of innovation and technology within businesses. I'm your host, Ryan Neal, president of Blueprint Technologies, and today on our show we have a guest, Ross Lambert. He is a principal solution architect at Blueprint and has just recently taken a new role. He wears a number of different hats at Blueprint, from the resident teacher. He runs our unofficial sweat lodge, where we go to seek our inspiration and innovation. But then he's also taken a new role in our innovation lab over at X. Ross, do you want to introduce yourself, say hi to the audience, and tell a little bit about what your new role is going to be?
You bet. Well, you already know my name, Ross Lambert, and my new title is Emerging Product Architect. And before I get into the details of what that role is all about, I need to give a preamble because it'll explain a few things. You're going to think I'm really ruthless otherwise, so I got to give a preface. Years and years ago, back at the dawn of time, actually the dawn of microcomputers, I had a little software company. And for me, software development was my art form. And so I started a business so that I could do my art. And I loved it, wrote articles about it, published magazines, technical magazines for programmers, and actually had some really, really good years, hired up staff. But we were heavily Apple computers focused, both Apple II and Macintosh. And those who got enough gray hair to remember that era also know that Apple had some pretty lean years in the 90s. And so at a certain point, all of a sudden the rug was jerked out from underneath us. And I didn't realize that the money that we had made was not due to my brilliance, but just to having hopped on a train that was going in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as that train went in another direction, the whole picture changed. Yeah. And so that has really colored my experience ever since, to the point now where I will tell you that really I'm very much bottom line oriented, because I know businesses have to be. We have to make money. Otherwise, my salary doesn't get paid. Otherwise, if there's any kind of slight downturn, if there's no buffer or anything, we got all kinds of problems. All that to say, Emerging Product Architect is about scouting out new technologies and then trying to match those up with client and customer needs to create a product offering that makes the most possible money. And I say that because a good part of my job, but Gary also is working with me on this stuff, is creating at least a process that we can apply repeatedly to evaluate the profit potential of an idea. And a lot of that includes creating what we call traction tests. And we don't want to have to go create some sort of full-blown product. So we really have, and this is really where their current challenge is.
I mean, you say we, Gary Nikonalua, he's the managing director of Invention and Experimentation. He runs the X, which is our innovation lab. And then who else is on the team that works with you?
Been working with Megan Reinhardt a lot. And we have a few people that are in and out. Ray Wu is currently out on an engagement, but dropped in today, so it was nice to see him again. But just to finish that last thought, we tried to develop something, I call it bait, that attracts the same kind of people that have the need, or maybe it fills a part of that bigger need in a small way. Might just be some source code that we give away for free. Might just be an ebook with some tips, and that's what I'm currently working on now. Then we run some perhaps Google ads, or we do some press releases, or we do some things on Product Hunt and see if the interest is out there.
Awesome.
And so what we're really trying to get to is basically a series of gates. And if a product idea and its initial formation with these bait tests can get to the end of that gate, then we have a pretty good sense of not only how to reach people that are interested, but also how much it's going to cost to reach those people that are interested. And then from the preliminary research that we've done, even before we got started on all this, we have a sense of the size of the market. So the first one we do, our estimates on market size and all that, I expect, and potential profitability, I hope we're really accurate, but it's one of those things where we're going to learn.
Yeah.
And we're going to get better each time in terms of making those kinds of estimates. So all that to say, my role is to merge new products with customer needs, or new technology, and merge it with customer needs and develop the most profitable products we can.
It's awesome because we've recently become a full-fledged technology company, and our goal is to create these solution-enabling products that help accelerate our client solutions. So it's going to be a real pivotal role. So let me get to the one cue of the day for you. Since you are in this new role and you've been getting your feet wet, but you've been living this has been your entire life pretty much. Up until this point, it's not like you're starting from scratch. So what do you see as the next wave of innovation, the next wave of invention within products and services that is going to be the game changer? Like what are you passionate about right now, and you see the biggest opportunity for your new role?
Well, there are several sizes of products that we're looking at, and we don't really want to always be going for something that takes like a year to develop, because frankly the risk is extreme. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of money to throw into something. And so there are several things of different sizes. For example, one of the things that we're looking at has to do with controlling cloud spend. There's lots of stuff out there for monitoring your cloud spend, and there's lots of stuff out there for what they call managed cloud, where you have a company that you go to them to set up your cloud, and they have their own UI, and so they insert themselves between you and mm-hmm. Azure, or you and AWS, or whatever. And they're great solutions, but they're really heavy, and a lot of organizations don't want that layer in between them and Azure.
Yep.
But yet, if we can come up with a product that still helps them really lock down their Azure spend or their AWS spend without having to take over everything, I'm pretty excited about that. And we're running some trials on that starting next Monday.
That's awesome for all of our listeners, especially for those in IT or on the business side. If you've experienced the cloud bill, the shock of your cloud bill when one of your teams gets a little excited and starts experimenting with things, that's what the scenario that Ross is talking about, mm-hmm. giving real time monitoring of when that happens.
And it's way more than monitoring too. It's actually some ironclad control, which I haven't seen anybody else do. Mm. I'm kind of excited about that. One thing this is an actual customer story. We hit our Azure budget, and so we got all our developers together and we said, look, don't spin up anything new, spin down everything you can. And so for a day or so, things look better, look like they might be okay. Then some contractors in another part of the world who hadn't gotten that message spun up a massive Databricks cluster. I mean, as big as you possibly could, I think. And we're doing a bunch of tests, and because they were not operating directly one-on-one with the local folks, it wasn't until some alerts started firing that the customer realized not only did we not stop the spend, we increased our spend in spite of really trying to hold the line.
Yeah.
It was just out of control.
Yeah, that's the unlimited scalability, the downside of it. Outside of cloud tech, like any other areas that you're focused on?
Well, I'm looking way ahead, and there are several things that are really interesting right now. People hear about blockchain and they immediately think Bitcoin, mm-hmm. and I'm kind of glad Bitcoin has kind of, I don't know, the price crashed, of course, and it's really volatile, and it's sort of receding from the public's mind. It's like the tide going out. What's left on the sand is the real value. It's the little slivers of gold. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, the real value is in the distributed ledger technology. And that is getting really interesting. One thing that has happened is that companies we discovered, through this whole Bitcoin exercise, distributed ledger technology is not mature enough right now. It's not scalable in the sense that you can't get down to sub-second speed. By the time you get consensus from every server in the network, it can be sometimes 30, 40 seconds, upwards of a minute, and that's not good enough for like bank-style transactions, stock transactions, you name it. Well, companies are stepping up and they're saying, we have solutions for this. I just watched a webinar from one company. They are reducing the workload required to get consensus by creating what they call committees. And so you have a committee of servers that represents thousands of other servers in the blockchain. And then there are other committees, and all the committees have to come to consensus. And once they do, then they broadcast out to their committee members. That's a really interesting way to kind of divide and conquer that workspace and get the same net effect. As far as a product idea for Blueprint, there are several things in the hopper. One is that we're simply trying to find a way to represent something in the real world in the blockchain.
Okay.
Might be RFID tags, might be some sort of other kind of intrinsic collection of attributes about that object. Because right now, there's only one company that I've seen, it's actually a guy that I know, created a company called Life ID, and they use your MFA on your phone, so you can use your thumbprint or whatever.
Okay.
And your Life ID is actually stored on your phone, but you have backup alternatives, like to other relatives and things like that. So if you break your phone, you don't lose your ID. But it is unique to you forever. And so you can go to any other website that supports Life ID, and you don't have to enter all your personal information. You just do your thumbprint, if your phone is enabled for it, or some other way. And I think it's really interesting that they've bridged the gap between the physical world and the digital. And like one crazy idea that I was just throwing around is, hey, we'll do like mini storage, and we'll have items in there that are all got unique IDs, and their ownership can transfer a dozen times, but when the person that really owns it at the moment shows up, they can get it. I mean, it's brainstorming at this point.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I'm a big fan of any idea that you can figure out to monetize blockchain, because that's what everybody's focused on. So, well, that's awesome, Ross. Thanks for coming on the show today. How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk about new ideas, find out more about what you're doing in the Innovation Lab, find out more about what you're working or what you're thinking about bringing to market? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest way is probably email, rlambert@bpcs.com. I'm also available on LinkedIn, and I usually check that at least once a day. So if you want to message me on LinkedIn, I'll get back to you there as well.
And then if you're ever in the Wenatchee area, you can actually stop by his house, and maybe he'll invite you to his sweat lodge.
For sure.
Well, that's great. Thanks for coming on the show as always. And if you'd like to connect with any of our other Blueprint folks that Ross mentioned, you can either go on our website, www.bpcs.com, or on LinkedIn. We're pretty active on all the social media sites. And all of this information is going to be posted in the podcast notes. As always, thank you for listening. And be sure to tune in next week as we feature another guest that is very passionate about innovation in tech. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.